Am all right. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Rebecca. You are in your dining room. Are you in your dining room? So little side note, we did an event down in San Diego and we reached out to Brent and Rebecca and we were looking for a place to park. We were doing real estate classes, trainings, and traveling around in our rig. And Brent said, "Oh, you can park in our front yard." And we're like, "We're 43 feet long." He's like, "No, no, no, you can park in our front yard." So they have this, they're at the end of the court and have this like massive space on the street that we backed into. And we had a lovely meal together, actually multiple meals at that dining room table with the most beautiful wall behind it. It's spectacular. Rebecca, I'm guessing it's you, Rebecca, that has the eye for design in the house.
Oh no, it's definitely Brent all the way.
Your smile gave you away. All right, well, we're going to jump in and get started this morning. I would love to see as many faces as possible. We've got Katie, Terry, Nagar, John, Cindy, Christy, Pablo, Rebecca, Selena. Thank you for opening up the call this morning. I just want to start off and say we're going to have a great conversation about managing expectations and managing energy on the call today as it relates to recruiting and attraction. And you'll be able to take the topic that we're going to discuss today into other areas as well. And we're going to have some very specific how-tos on that topic in the recruiting and attracting process. So as always, want to welcome everyone to the call and say that these calls happen the first and third Tuesdays of the month. I always open the call that way because one day you're going to wake up and go, "Oh, it's the first or third Tuesday." I'm branding in your brains right now the cadence of our calls and conversations so that if by some reason it's the first or third Tuesday, you wake up knowing that this is a place you want to be when you are committed to growing and building an organization. So as always, additionally, in the chat, would love for you to put one thing that you want to walk away from today's call or conversation with. And it could be positioned like this. It could be one thing that if you look at your business right now and there's one thing that you wanted to break through, overcome, that would be the thing that opens up the floodgates for you to take your attraction and recruiting to the next level, what would that one thing be? And we will definitely add it to that conversation for today. In addition, if there's anything maybe that you're just coming up against, right, that you haven't navigated before, or maybe you navigated and there's a breakdown associated with it. I was on a call yesterday and thought back to my days of actually selling real estate. And I remember I would say to buyers and sellers before we were going into the process to manage the energy and manage the expectations around that, I would say, and you may want to pick up this word tracking. Hey, listen, I'm committed to you having the best experience possible. And I'm going to be doing things proactively for you and on your behalf in the background that you'll probably never know about. And here's where the managing energy and expectations comes into play. At some point, we are going to have one or more breakdowns. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know when it's going to happen. However, I know that it will happen. And so when that happens, can I get your commitment that your commitment to me will be what my commitment to you is? And that is the relationship that we have and me being able to help you get what you want, so that we have those conversations immediately and we're able to navigate and work through them. And that ended up being a really great thing when I was selling real estate, because when those things would happen, I would go back to the client. I would just say, remember, before we started this process, I said that I was going to be proactively managing things on the back end to make sure that you had the best experience possible. And that at some point there was going to be some unforeseen thing that was going to show up as a breakdown or multiple breakdowns. And that it wasn't a matter of if it was going to happen, it was more than likely going to happen, because that is life. So expect that at some point, and let's focus on how we get into solution and move forward together. We are at that moment right now. Isn't that exciting? I did a great job for you right up front. And so that shifted everything, right? So today we're going to talk about managing energy. We're going to talk about managing relationships and managing expectations as it relates to your process around attraction and recruiting. So additionally, I see that Katie's put something in the chat and wants to talk about bringing a layer of focus in, some how-tos on for people that are really focused and that focus is effective. That would be great. And we'll go from there. So I see we've got a couple of more people that just joined us. Welcome, Richard. Welcome, Leo. Welcome, Will, of course, and Jazz. And would love to see as many faces as possible because I love looking at your faces when we're having the conversation. So let's start the conversation off in this context of, I would love to hear from each of you right now, the role of managing energy and expectations in your recruiting process, and what are the things that you are doing that you are aware of. And if you're not aware of it, this may bring awareness to it. And there's a really, I seem to have found myself in multiple breakdown conversations lately, supporting, different aspects of people in our organization. And at the root of every single breakdown has been a breakdown in how the energy of the relationship got managed or the expectations got managed. So that being said, I know that everyone has some level of skill set around managing energy and managing expectations. And so what I would love to know from you is, in this context of attraction and recruiting, how are you doing that with the people that you are, let's start off in this conversation of how are you doing that with the people that you are prospecting and would like to work with in your organization? I think it would be important because everybody's going to have a different way and different things that they do. And so really want to lean on the collaboration of this community to take all of our learnings to a higher level.
Can you give an example, Casey?
Yeah. So an example, I'll give you an example of a breakdown. I was on a call yesterday with somebody that is, they've come into the organization this year and they said, man, when I was being recruited, and this idea of being an icon agent, it was like, hey, do your 20 transactions after you cap. And you can earn, 16,000 in free stock. And they're like, I did cap, I did do my 20 transactions after, and then I found out I was getting $8,000 in stock. And in order for me to get the other 8, there was other things for me to do. Right. And so that would be an example of a breakdown in managing the expectations in communication. Right. So generally where the breakdowns happen is evidence of and can show us where there was an opportunity to manage expectations differently. And then sometimes we just know based on the experience someone's having that we've managed them really well. Katie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about expectations, I've been having conversations with owners of brokerages, smaller brokerages, mid-sized brokerages. And my managing expectation is I'm still learning this process with talking through how we do this. So if you wouldn't mind that we do this together and we can learn together, I think there could be some really interesting opportunities. And there's going to be things that come up that I don't know about yet. So can we just take these things one step at a time and see if continue to make sense? And so my expectation management with them is like, hey, I don't know that much either. I may know a little bit more about EXP than you, but I don't know a lot. And I'm willing to learn if you're willing to learn. And kind of the arm in arm analogy is what I've been doing.
I love that. So instead of positioning yourself as the expert, you're positioning yourself as the partner and being in a learning based space, going through a process with them, even though you're a highly competent person, you know the industry, you've been with EXP. So you're really leaning on the power of the collaboration within the partnerships and the people that you're working with. I love that. What are some other examples of how you're managing energy or managing expectations?
Yeah, when I'm recruiting now, I don't talk about I really don't lean on rev share. And I noticed in the beginning a lot of us lean on the rev share. Well, it's evident that only, I mean, we see it all in our organizations, only, 10% or 1 out of 10 people is going to do anything with it. So if you bring them over here thinking that they're going to get rev share and all the other stuff, they got to do it, and they're not going to do it. So they're going to leave if they fail in that aspect. So I just really lean on all the other benefits of the model, and that's how I kind of manage their expectations.
I love that. So instead of the focus around revenue share being like, hey, this is pillar of income you can build and putting a lot of energy there, it's more just like an extra if they should happen to participate. Fantastic. What else? What would be some other examples of how you're managing energy in the attraction and recruiting process?
I would say teamwork. I rely on my team to help. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So that's how I manage the expectation. You come in our group, we have a teamwork, and this is what really helped me to do my transaction. So I would, rely on that, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Who else? Who has another? I have a question. How would you manage expectations in this context of sponsor shopping?
Hey Casey, I think that I have probably might be bragging, but I think I have the best upline. Like, I have 5 broker owners above me and Leo, and then I'm the 7th sponsor. So in terms of like sponsor shopping, it's really hard to really beat that, just because of the experience that's, a part of our upline. And then for energy, I do a lot of third-party validation and then group coaching together. So that's how I'm doing it.
Okay. Who else? Because this is here's the bottom line. This was not an aspect of EXP when nobody knew what EXP was, but the more people that are with EXP and the bigger the footprint is of EXP, like the truth is, and this would be a managing energy around this topic conversation, is that more than likely someone that you're talking to already knows someone else that's with EXP, and more than likely, and perhaps they have been, spoken to at some point, or not, or maybe it was a long time ago, or maybe it's right now. And so from that, it is definitely, there's a 2-component managing energy and expectations piece of that. It's one, how do you manage your own energy in that situation, right? When you're in that situation. And then number 2, how do you manage, there's actually 3 levels to that. How you manage your own energy, knowing that that's an inevitable. How do you manage the energy with the prospect that is looking at EXP around agreements, expectations? How are you managing that energy? And then 3rd, how are you managing the energy as far as how you stay in a community of people that, if we're looking at what we're about, and I will only speak for this community because I know this community well, we want to help people, period. We want to help people, and we're using the platform of EXP to help real estate agents in ways that they're unable to be helped at this level other places within our industry. So would love to, so value attraction, tell me more about that. You can come off mute, or in the chat would be good too. Either way.
I'm just Casey Moses here. I'm focusing on really understanding. I'm still brand. I'm still new. I tell people I'm still new. So just like I believe, is it Katie share? We're learning together, but really identifying the values within EXP, an organization, the training, understanding the value that you and Rick bring, even on the team building systems, because everybody's going to want something different, right? It's not just rev share. It's not just, let me go recruit. Some people are just, hey, I want to produce. I want to learn how to produce. I want to learn how to become a team. So literally understanding the value in every aspect of EXP and our organization, how those align with people. That's really what I'm focusing on, and putting quality, valuable people in front of me who are going to produce, who are going to recruit, right? Based on those 2 things.
I love that. So I'm going to walk everyone through. If you've got a piece of paper and a pen, I'm going to encourage you to write this down so that you have a visual. I was scouring my documentation and did not find a visual documentation. So I'm going to ask you to write it down so that you have a visual documentation for yourself. And I will do my best to find it at some point. And this is from a coaching company that I hired and worked with. And it was essentially on the highest level of skills around managing energy and relationships. I mean, people say, you know, there's a difference. Business is relationships, life is relationships, everything's relationships. So, so here's what I want you to visualize energetically. Let's say, and I'm going to use Cindy as an example. If I've made no promises to Cindy, if I've committed nothing to Cindy, and I deliver nothing to Cindy in the way of value, if it was a positive energy or a negative energy, we're going to use a plus and minus. What is Cindy's experience? Is she having a positive experience or a positive energy around it? Is she having negative energy? Is she having no energy? What's her experience? If I promise nothing, commit nothing, deliver nothing, and she receives nothing, what's her experience?
Neutral.
It's neutral. Exactly. There is no energy there. So now what happens if I commit something to Cindy and I don't deliver it? Now what's Cindy's energy with me?
Negative.
It's negative. Everybody with me so far? Now what happens if I commit something to Cindy and I deliver it?
Positive.
Does everyone agree with that?
Positive, yes.
Does anybody have a different perspective on if I commit something to Cindy and I deliver it? So we've got one person that said it, she now has positive energy as it relates to me.
I say it's neutral,
Why would you say neutral?
just because I have the expectation that if they said they're gonna do it, then they will do it. And so I would just be at a baseline at that point.
So this is a really important thing that, like, this, I cannot communicate how important this is. So if your perspective is, I said I was going to do something and I did it, and your expectation is that that person is happy with you because that's how you would feel. And what's actually happened for that person, depending on who they are, is that you said you were going to do something, you did it, and their energy towards you is neutral. It's like, hey, you just did what you said you were going to do. Can you see how managing the energy in that relationship, there could be a breakdown, even if nothing quote unquote bad is happening? Like, I said I was going to do something and I delivered it, and you're not excited out of your mind. I think you should be. Breakdown.
Yes, that makes
So-
sense.
There's a fourth option, and that is when I commit to Cindy to do something and I go over and above what I committed to doing. Now what happens with the energy in that relationship?
Double positive.
Does anyone have?
You know,
a different-
I think it depends. It really depends on the person. There's no, you know, extreme. It depends on the person's personality.
Okay, any other perspectives?
I think the question you gotta have is, how do I win with you and how do I lose with you? And then you can figure out how can I manage the expectations properly.
Now, here's what I love about this conversation is there is no concrete. There was some commonalities, right? However, there was no concrete because all these things were based on perspective. So here is another example, another way to think of it. Let's say, and I'm going to use Pablo as an example. Pablo, let's say I don't ever wish anyone happy birthday. It's not something I do. You'll never get a card from me or a gift or a text or anything. I don't send out birthday messages. And then one year, I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to do an extra. I'm going to go over and above what I would normally do. And I'm going to send Pablo a birthday card that says happy birthday. Now, Pablo, that's great. You received the card. Next year, when I don't send you one, what's the energy?
Not the greatest.
Not the greatest. Hey, you remember my birthday last year?
What happened this year?
And not this year. Like, I didn't hear from you. I didn't get a card, right? The breakdown in this instance is that I did not communicate to you, Pablo, that it was an extra, not a standard. So there's a conversation around standards and around extras. And when you do not communicate that you are delivering an extra, the expectation of the person receiving it more often than not is that it's your standard. So Pablo, if I said to you, as I wrote the birthday card, I said, listen, I don't send birthday cards. You may never get another one from me. However, this year you're like, I was thinking about you and appreciating you and hoping that you have like the greatest birthday ever. I proactively have communicated that you getting a birthday card from me is an extra. Don't expect to ever receive another one. Oh, by the way, if you get another one next year, it's now an extra because I positioned the one that I gave you as an extra to begin with. It's a different way to manage the energy in that relationship. So when we're looking at and thinking about this in the context of attraction and recruiting, I think that there's a couple of things that become very important to keep in mind when we're working with people. And oh, by the way, that could be people within our organization, leaders within our organization. So I find from the perspective of what I know is that people that are a reflection of the values that Rick and I hold and who we are as people will be in this organization long-term and are aligned with that. And if there should be people that come into the organization that are so far against anything that we stand for, that we are about, they will not be in the organization long-term. And I trust that whatever the forces that be, whatever you want to call that, are constantly working that out behind the scenes. I trust that in attraction and recruiting as well. I trust that if I remember like it was our second year with EXP and there was two guys that had been like revered Rick. He'd gone and done classes for them when he was with Keller Williams. We had vacationed together as families in San Diego. And he had been in this conversation with them about EXP, on and off and on and off. And then somebody that worked for them, literally in a salaried position that worked for them, was a coaching client of Rick's. And the conversation with EXP was kind of on hold for several months with them, nothing going on. But the conversation then got very active with the guy that worked for them. And he was, he's like, man, I will come in. I'll name you, Rick, as a sponsor. They'll come in. We'll come all together in your organization. And when it came right down to it, all of those people came into EXP and they did not come into the organization with Rick. And what the two guys said is, we're going here. And to the person that was on salary with them, they said, you can come here or you're not with us moving forward. And that was a really interesting thing because this was a quote unquote friend, right? And I remember saying at that time, because Rick was so upset about it, and it was upsetting based on the amount of time and energy that had been invested, I said, Rick, what if we took on the perspective that we just dodged a bullet? What if we took on the perspective that we just dodged a bullet? Now, this is in the context of managing energy around attraction and recruiting. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you had a lot of energy on the fact that where these, individuals sat was that these were your friends, right? And you've been doing all of the things as far as walking them through a due diligence process, adding value, coaching them in their business. And someone else, not in our organization, came along in a different conversation and a very, different conversation, not a conversation that is a conversation that we would be in, but that was the conversation that brought them to the company and into that organization, those conversations over time. So from a managing our own energy perspective, at the end of the day, what is the best thing? The best thing is that everybody's going to decide for themselves, and the platform is the same regardless of where they go in an organization. So how do we manage our own energy if we're truly coming from a place of we want to help people, we want to grow, we want to build, and that perspective of, wow, even when I feel like I've done all the things and however it went down, I energetically don't feel great about. What if I took on the perspective that I dodged a bullet and I have no idea why? I'll never know why, but I have full and complete trust that if it was supposed to have happened any other way, it would have happened that way. And come from that. In that context of managing our own energy, what that frees us to do is to not get tainted, resentful, and energy down, and pessimistic, and bring that into what we're building. Energy is what makes the world go round, right? So I think that there's a couple of key things in this context of attraction and recruiting, and this also goes into working with buyers, working with sellers, your significant other. Hey, listen, Rick and I are going to screw up. And it's not going to be intentional and it's not going to be malicious, but there's going to be something, if we haven't already or multiple times already in your experience of us, where you're like, man, I really hoped that would have gone differently or better, or I thought this is what's going to happen. And 9 times out of 10, we're not even going to know unless you tell us, because we're out there operating from a perspective of like, hey, we love everybody. We're doing our best to serve and culture and, nurture and cultivate and build and grow and help people. And yet, even though that is our come from, even though that is our commitment, there's going to be breakdowns, right? So why are we in this conversation? Why are we having this conversation? Is because when outside forces change, market shifts change, financial fluctuations happen. There may be people that were never a cultural match within EXP that are no longer with EXP, and they may have left a wake of destruction behind them as they exited or were removed. Like, these are very real things that happen. And so what we come back to in this is, first and foremost, how are you going to manage your own energy in your real estate sales business, in the partnerships that you have as a result of being part of this organization, in the collaboration? What agreements are there that maybe you think don't need to be stated, that have never actually there's been a conversation around? Or where are conversations that if you had that conversation and the come from was, hey, I'm in a place where people are good in their hearts and who they are as human beings, and here is a breakdown that I see that's happening or that I'm experiencing that I would like to collaborate and get into solution around and make agreements moving forward. Where are those conversations that for you to have that you haven't yet had, right? And then the question becomes, where might there be conversations for you to have in your organization that you don't even know there are to have? We were standing in our kitchen on Monday morning on Sunday evening, and the phone rings and it's Brent Gove. And Rick talks to him for a few minutes and he gets off the phone. I'm like, what did Brent want? And because normally, a lot of the times when Brent's calling, he's got a question or, he wants something. And Brent is the person that is responsible for Rick being at EXP, right? He's the person that talked to him about it all those years ago. And he goes, oh, he didn't want anything. And I said, actually, that's not true. Brent is managing the energy of the relationship that he has with you and with me by checking in and saying hello for no reason other than checking in and saying hello. And that's what that was. So my question for you would be, and this is a question I ask myself, where are there places within our organization that we can check in and say hello for the sake of checking in and saying what it would mean as we manage the energy of those relationships? And, you know, some people may look at that and go, oh, you know, well, that's kind of a manipulative thing to do because he wants to keep you happy at EXP. And that could be a perspective that someone takes on, right? But that would be reflective of that person, right? Versus a perspective of like, wow, I care about this person and I'm reaching out to say hello, right? And does it make an investment in that relationship? And does that make them, if there's a conversation that they wanted to have, could it be a place to open that conversation? Absolutely, right? So I remember coming into, and I'm gonna, this one last comment and then I'm gonna open it up because I've been talking a lot, is that in my history in the direct sales industry, one of the leaders that I really respected said, into 3 different conversations somewhere within my organization of different leaders as a check-in and a hello every single day to find someone to do that with. It is to reach up weekly and make sure that I'm in communication with the people that are there to support me. And then every day, 3 new people that I am reaching out to. So reach down to 3 different people in an organization daily, reach out to 3 new people that are not in the organization daily, and reach up once a week to stay in communication, relationship, and connection with the people that are there to support you. So imagine what would happen if we take this context of managing energy and that became something that you committed to. Reaching down 3 times a day, reaching out to 3 people a day, and reaching up once a week. Okay, opening up the floor for thoughts, comments, questions, pushback, feedback, different perspectives all around this topic of managing energy.
I have all of those.
Okay.
Of those.
Okay, I love it.
Well, I love, thank you for making it that clear. I'm actually as I'm working on focus, I'm redoing what my perfect week, my time blocking looks like. And so I got the work, reaching in the organization and out to 3 people every day. I love that. But the reaching up, like, I'm like, okay, does that, so Rick is my sponsor. Is it Rick? How far up do I go? Is it 3 people up? Which that actually might be kind of cool. So just from the advice you got in direct sales, was it just more connecting with your sponsor, or was it connecting with anybody in your upline to stay in a relationship?
It was staying in a relationship with multiple people. Right?
Okay, cool. So it could be a different person every week, potentially?
Yeah. So like
Okay.
once a month, you have some kind of connection, at least outside of a 3-way call conversation that's with the people that you're in business with. Right. And it could be a hello, it could be a check-in, it could be, thinking about you. Like when you think about, for people that are really focused on building attraction and recruiting, so much of the energy of what we do is going out, right? It's going out to the people that we're in relationship with, or building relationships with, or working to attract and recruit, or that are in the organization. It's going out. But how often do you have energy coming back to you? Like there's a couple of people on this call, like Will and Leo, consistently I'll get, text messages from like, hey, I appreciate you. Like, it's so nice to receive those, right? Because so much of where our energy is like constantly going out, right? So when we think about like managing the energy of an organization, what if there's this energy of like, yes, the majority of our energy when we're building and growing and nurturing is going out. But then imagine if there's like people that you love and that you respect and that you're partnering with that have some of that energy coming back to you once a month if you heard from them. Like, what would that feel like just even from a handful of people? And, to be in that experience versus like the constant experience of give, and pouring into others, right? Which is what, if you're on this call and you're a leader and you're building an organization, that's what you're doing. And if you're in real estate and you're doing it at a high level, that's what you're doing in your real estate business, right? We have the opportunity to have that reciprocal energy, right? Great. Who else?
You know, Casey, I feel like I already do this, and I think it does matter, and I do think it makes a huge impact.
Yes, 100. I think you started off as well, like managing the expectations and the breakdowns, right? Understanding that we're going to have breakdowns in this process, right? And I think that that's a really key thing that I'm taking and I'm embracing, because it's just like, hey, in the interim of our partnership, there may be a breakdown, and it's just so cool to actually be able to have a conversation about it and just like have a process, but like actually say it. So I'm going to be much more intentional about just saying that, just to have like that open door, like, hey, let's talk about it. There's going to be breakdowns, and it's something that we can look forward to collaborating on. So yeah,
I love that.
thank you.
So, you know, it neutralizes the energy of a breakdown to state that there's going to be one at some point. And so that idea about managing energy, but think about how often in life and relationships and business, there's breakdown and people aren't talking about it, right? They don't like conflict. They don't know how to navigate that conversation. They just want it to be like, if I just, you know, leave it alone and move on, but can you really move on? And then energetically, what happens when you are able to have a conversation and you've got two good humans that are like, hey, and we're not resolved, like, and sometimes there's breakdowns that go on in an ongoing context, right? Like there's multiple conversations in a same breakdown to get to the other side and break through in that conversation. And that's really where the opportunities to develop and grow the relationship are going to lie, right? Is in the, how do we navigate the situations in the breakdowns? Love that. Who else?
Hi, Casey.
Hi, Cindy.
So something that Will started doing with me, which, you know, him and I are in constant communication every day, multiple times a day, but something he started doing not too long ago was he started calling me and asking and not talking about real estate, which really and he said one time, you know, I called not to talk about real estate, but here we are talking about real estate or building or whatever. But that really meant a lot to me, because I think, you know, that in my mind, I was like, oh, I need to reach out, you know, to other people beside me or below me to see, you know, I don't want it to be every time we have a conversation that it always be about EXP or real estate. I want it to be about how can I help you as a person or an individual.
I love that. Okay, we'll take one more.
In the context of showing love, guys, let's all show some love and appreciation for Casey and Selena. Let's go.
Thank you, guys. So, okay, we're going to wrap this call early. Katie, did you get your tips on focus? 3 down, 3 out, 1 up?
Yes, that's I said it's my project today is to time block and to focus. So, and I love it. I'm like even thinking of my time when I'm going to be doing that. So, I love the thing about calling and not talking about business, just like, how are you? Right? Because you know, we're interacting with humans having a human experience. So this is awesome. I've got lots of notes, so thank you.
Yep. Okay, there's 2 very important announcements, so don't jump off the call yet. Number 1, Selena, you guys have like no idea. I mean, you know that if you've been in person with her, that she's amazing. However, a very important announcement. She was able to go into our organization and see that between in the last year and a half, so 2022 and this part of 2023, she was able to identify 457 agents that did a transaction sometime in that time that have not done any transactions this year. And so those 457 agents have been targeted through a voice message as well as an email campaign about the Activate launch call that's happening tomorrow. There's been hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, like this is her baby, of building and developing the program in the background, all to help people that want to be in production and do it in a community. So for those of you that have organizations, please, please, please follow up, be in communication, get people on that launch call. The actual, it's activatelaunchcall.com. They need to register for the call tomorrow. Get them on the call. They can decide if they're going to do the program or not. That will start next week. But that is one of the ways that we are, and I'm going to say this is an extra, not a standard. So the Activate program is an extra for you, the leaders in our organization, to help and support you with the agents that you've brought into your organizations in production. They could be agents that were formerly in Zillow Flex accounts on teams that are not now. They could be agents that are just, you know, that they need some more hands-on and a community to do it. Whatever the situation is, it could be agents that just, you know, life got in the way the last 4 or 5 months and have something bigger to plug into that's not going to take your time and energy. And so the launch call for that is tomorrow, and the promotional pricing of $49 ends the 4th at midnight. So there is urgency around getting that word out and supporting people that want to be in there and part of that, That's number one. Number two, this Friday, the Free Friday coaching call is part 2 with Cortland Warren. There's an email that went out this morning to our entire organization, our monthly email from Empire Builders, that has the recording of the one that was 2 weeks ago, that if you haven't listened to it, it was unbelievable, on resilience. Go back and catch that. And I would invite anyone, you know, it's again, a company agnostic Free Friday coaching call with Rick and Cortland this Friday, like really, really, really incredible, you know, for that. And then systems, for those of you that have people in your organizations that are like really wanting to improve how they are working so that they can scale more effectively and be more functionally excellent. Systems with Selena on Friday at 11. So most of you are receiving text messages directly from Rick. Some of you on this call are not, but heads up, you can find all of that stuff in the newsletter that went out today. Coming from empirebuilderspro@gmail.com. If for some reason it went into your junk or spam box. So Selena, is there anything else that I am missing?
I think that covered everything. All of that's found on resources on empirebuilderspro.pro.
Fantastic. And then Tom, I see your hand up. We'll take you as our last comment for today.
Thanks, Casey. Just wanted to just touch on something that you said earlier in the call about with the energy around agent attraction, especially when prospects are vetting teams, vetting sponsorship lines. It's you said it was really this similar energy to a listing appointment, which is almost never is a client or a seller without the option of several agents to choose from. And it's super easy for us to jump into the idea of just spewing value. Oh, value, value, value. We're spewing what we believe is the value, as opposed to finding out what's really important to them. Do they need support? Or they want production? Is it rev share that's their hot button? Or is it just the collaboration and cooperation of an amazing team, or being part of something new and something exciting, or whatever it is? It's important that we know what's important to them. And this is not just an agent attraction or production. It transfers into all the relationships. You're with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers, with your family. It's called Tactical Empathy, and it's from the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Highly recommend it. But I don't claim to be an expert at all, but I've been practicing it for a couple of years, and it is literally transformed my relationships. And it makes a difference in agent attraction too. I've noticed that when I spew value, they join with someone else. I've had that multiple times, as opposed to really finding out what's important to them and inviting them to a conversation and to experience our organization in a way that meets their needs. So just
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yes, every time I cook dinner, I make sure and remind Rick it's an extra.
Well done.
Honey, you know, this is not a standard. This is an extra. I got dinner tonight. All right. Well, we love and appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for who you are and your contribution to our organization and community. Great having you on the call today. And we'll look forward to seeing you again multiple times this week at whichever opportunities you choose to plug into. Bye.